I am so excited to introduce the moderator of our next session on purpose-driven growth. We're going to get some chairs up here. How are we all doing? We doing good, by the way? Yeah? Okay. I'm asking for energy because I need it too. So, how are we doing? We need some more energy for our next panel. Yes? All right. Please welcome to the stage a very epic human, a human I'm very thrilled that is about to walk up here, Jenna Arnold. Jenna Arnold is the author of Raising Our Hands, an educator, a social entrepreneur, activist, mother. She co-founded nonprofits, developed hit TV shows for MTV and Showtime, no big deal. Served as the chief impact officer at an investment fund. Oprah named her one of her 100 awakened leaders who are using their voice and talent to elevate humanity, and she was named one of Inc. magazine's 20 most disruptive innovators. Oh my goodness, I love being up here. Jenna, the stage is yours.
Hi. Hello, it's so nice to see everybody. Can I ask the other two panelists to join us? We have Anjali Kumar, who is also an author, and Sam, who has a book coming out on November 15th. And all we were really doing was just commiserating about how exhausting it is to birth a book. So we...
the English Channel.
Well, so yeah, I'm a little bit like Jer, and you're all gonna.
I don't know if this is.
I'll save that for later. But Jeremy putting us up here after Tatum and Andy.
Yeah.
Those are. It's a big space to fill, particularly when we are tasked with what I feel like is an existential question that I happen to believe, not just me, myself, and these two friends, not the folks in the room, but arguably the entire country is going through, which is really, what does this experiment of purpose, what is it that we're trying to do and give to the world mean? And when so many of us are building for-profit companies, can you really do profit and purpose? Having been an impact officer at a big VC firm, I can just help you all catapult through the, if I may say so, BS. There's really no such thing as something that is for purpose and for profit. When you are building something in a capitalistic space, don't even try. You know, just be like, no, it's 51% capitalism, 51% profit. And we want to do really good at the same time. And I think sometimes people spend a lot of time trying to pretend something that they aren't or trying to do. And instead of doing that dance with yourself, just be honest about it. Start thinking about what that purpose is. And some days it's like if you're a parent, or if you're a coach, or if you're a friend or a daughter, some days you're doing a really good job, and the other days you're just trying to get the dishwasher loaded. And it's okay to be across that spectrum. So, Sam and Anjali, it's nice to be here. And as we have a bunch of curious humans, citizens, leaders, and entrepreneurs, what the hell is purpose?
Thank you. It was really great seeing you all.
And this is Anjali.
Good night. Thank
this
you.
is sporty Anjali.
Oh yeah, this is me in my
This
sporty
is her.
look because it's a sporty conference.
She's like, I am ready for the sports conference. Look at my outfit. I'm
Yeah,
like,
I'm ready.
Got it.
It's a sweatshirt. It's gym shoes. Please, you go first. I need to.
I don't know. I don't fully understand the question.
Well, if we talk about, I think the effort to measure impact is sometimes a fool's errand, because I could smoke and mirrors, like, looking at Tatum's slide, talk about how many students, or how many athletes, or what the numbers are, or how many hours on a field, or how many, defining some sort of safety, which looks different per person, or per client, I should say. But this idea of, if we are looking to have profitable and successful careers and have some sort of reward that we're feeling like our time and our efforts are worthy, you're writing a book about kindness.
I am.
And that is a currency that I'm not sure a lot of our textbooks or our storybooks or our networks necessarily say that's an important currency. So tell us a little bit about kindness or
Sure.
the idea of purpose as a vehicle.
Well, I hope I don't. So first of all, my name's Sam, and I run a company during the day called Pavilion, and what we are is we call it a community-powered learning platform. We help primarily startup professionals gain the skills they need to unlock and achieve their professional potential. That's what our vision is. So I guess, and there's about 10,000 members all over the world. This was a bootstrap business. My story isn't, frankly, that dissimilar from Andy's in the sense that I had no expectation of building some global business. Actually, I was a startup executive before, and I just kept getting fired. And I really started my own company so that nobody could fire me. At least I wasn't likely to fire myself. So I was doing it for job stability and just to have make a living that was secure, that wasn't in someone else's control. And through the course of a lot of things that have happened over the course of the last couple of years, including COVID, we've become a venture scale business. We took on a big financing round last year for $25 million. And a lot of the things that I'd been chasing over the course of my career working for other people finally actually happened. And the weird thing was that they happened when I stopped chasing them. And so the book I've got coming out is called Kind Folks Finish First, The Considerate Path to Success in Business and Life. It's available now on pre-order at Amazon. Feel free to buy 1,000 to 2,000 copies for you and your closest friends. But it is about that journey. I guess the first thing I would say, and not to quibble, but I'm a capitalist stan. I'm in favor of capitalism, and I actually think there isn't a necessary conflict between purpose and profit. And maybe that's because I'm an econ major, but I actually think that the thing that has enabled my business to grow and to serve thousands of people when we originally started as a group of 50 people getting dinner together here in New York is the fact that we're for profit. Because we are able to, for profit in capitalism, in regulated capitalism, so not monopolies, but what it means is that we make money when people like our stuff. And we sell recurring, we sell a membership, so you got to renew the membership. So the only way for me to grow is actually for people to continue to want to pay me. And they're only going to want to pay me if I'm building something of value that they think is worth the money. So from my perspective, I actually don't see like an inherent disconnect. And but I will say that, I think that the ideas that I wrote about in the book aren't that common. I think a lot of people practice them. And the basic ideas are pretty straightforward, right? That the whole point of kindness, and it's not nice, because I think you could find a lot of people, perhaps some in this room, that don't think I'm particularly nice. But what I mean by kindness is just trying to do the right thing. And so the tenets of it basically are build relationships, not transactions, try to help people without asking for anything in return, stop keeping score, believe in karma, and play for the long term. Have a long-term view of your life, not a short-term transactional view of your life. And so my whole business was about helping other people, helping them find jobs, helping them gain the skills that they needed. Eventually, we did charge a fee. It started off as free. But I guess to the point of the question, I think that this world, particularly America, it's got a lot of challenges and a lot of inequities and a lot of problems. But there is an opportunity to build something, and it's a place where you can build something. You can generate the things that you want by helping other people and by serving other people. It's not the only way. There's still jerks out there that are transactional. Every time they offer you their hand, they have a bill in the other hand that they want to hand you. But there is an opportunity for a different way, and that's sort of the point of my book. And my life changed literally when I stopped pursuing the other way. There's a scene in the book where I hired a coach because, again, I kept getting fired. And the coach said, well, what do you stand for? And I said, well, that's a ridiculous. I stand for making money. What does anybody stand for? And he said, you can't stand for that. That's not something people stand for. Money comes after the thing. It's not the input into the thing. And so I went through this exercise of figuring out what I stood for. And what I stood for is helping people I care about and respect achieve their goals. That's really what I stand for. And I got so much joy over the course of my career helping people find jobs, helping them become better, making connections between people that might be able to help each other. And the consequence of all of it was that I ended up building this company that's doing pretty well and that has unlocked all of these other things that I wanted in my life. And it only happened in some weird, karmic way when I stopped chasing them so aggressively and stopped focusing on anything other than where I found joy and energy. And for me, that was helping other people.
And it sounds like there's a level of stripping away the performance, not as separate from whatever the finances are that you want, because whatever the car you want to, house you want to build, whatever it might be, but this idea of like longing toward authenticity. And Anjali, I'm going to ask you in my follow-up question, if you could go ahead and brag about yourself, and if you don't, I will make sure I get it in by the end of the session. But as the author of somebody whose log line talks about looking for something to believe in.
Yeah.
And you know, Sam, you talk about this idea of like, well, this is where I find most of myself in helping others. And like, I don't know, anyone could stand up here and wax poetic about the beauty of what really happens on sports fields and how we get closer to our humanness and we get closer to that grief and that joy and that elation and that fear and all the stuff that is like the stuff I like to Netflix my way out of. But talk to us a little bit as being, you know, spearheading all the efforts you did at Google and at Warby Parker and all these for-purpose, for-profit companies, but like how you took that pivot to chase what authenticity really meant, and that's where you found success.
Yeah, I mean, it's been, you know, first of all, I'm obsessed with the idea of this book, and it's the book I wish I wrote next, but too late. So
You can still write it.
I'm just going to copy
There's
it.
plenty of room for more books
Yeah,
about
I'll write
kindness.
another one. So, as Jenna mentioned, my background is kind of a windy road, and I don't know if you know the kind of 101, but briefly, I'm a lawyer by training. I know. I still practice here and there, boutique legal practice, we'll call it. But my background is mostly nonprofit for a long spell, and then I sort of took a hard left into tech and worked at Google for many years, and then went from there into for-profit startups and did startups for years. So, but the startups I chose to work at, the first one was Warby Parker, which for me was kind of bringing those two previously somewhat siloed areas of my life together in theory, because my role was general counsel and the head of social innovation. So all the do-goodery that fell under Warby Parker, all the buy a pair, give a pair stuff, all the nonprofit collaborations, ensuring our team was being treated well, like taking care of our employees, taking care of the folks that made the glasses, and ensuring fair labor conditions, you know, healthy working conditions in the factories, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So for me, that was a really interesting way to bring these two ideas together, that you could do good and still do well, and what does that look like? But then I went on to write a book called Stalking God, My Unorthodox Search for Something to Believe in. So I think that's sort of like, what's that purpose? What am I trying to do? It's sort of a funny Eat, Pray, Love. Like, imagine if Mindy Kaling wrote Eat, Pray, Love. That's sort of the rub of the book. And ultimately, I didn't find an answer, because I was like, I don't really know what I believe. I don't really know what I'm doing all this for. It's still something that I look to find out and hope that someday I'll have an answer of what the whole point is. But I think what I've learned along the way is that as long as it feels pretty good and it's not hurting people and it makes me feel like I'm having some impact, that's the right next step. Like, it's very hard for me to say, this is the clear path, this is the only thing I care about. I wish I had that clarity, that I was so clear on what my point is here. I really envy folks that do that. My husband's a doctor, and he's so clear. He doesn't struggle at all with his purpose in life, and I'm always like, I don't know, what I'm gonna do, like, what do I do tomorrow? Like, I have no idea, but I know that if I'm doing more good in the world than harm, if the companies that I advise, which is what I do now, I advise a bunch of startups, if they are doing good work in the world, if there's like a strong red thread through all these experiences of helping unlock better things in the world, I feel good about that. That feels like maybe that's enough purpose for me, because I do think I resonate with what you're saying, that it is hard to fully integrate profit and purpose, and sometimes it's like a little bit of mental gymnastics trying to create this connection. But I also would say that the work all of you do is profit and purpose in some cases, or just purpose and purpose in other cases, because the impact that sports have on kids. I have a 12-year-old, and I see the difference it makes in her life being part of a team, dancing. You know, she does dance, which I would argue is a sport. She does trapeze.
Yes,
also a sport.
qualified.
That's a sport, right? I don't know what team she's going to join for trapeze, but you know, just that being able to be physical, being able to be free, being able to be coached and achieve something more, and that's purposeful.
I think one of the my desperate tips for anyone who's trying to build a company in this for-profit, for-purpose space is, I think, as a sort of knock to some of the earlier companies from like a decade, 15 years ago, including Warby, where there's like this one-to-one model, or a percentage of sales goes to, or we're offering scholarships for any company can argue that they're a for-purpose company. And I think the dance and the maneuvering that we put ourselves through is us falling for this ghost that we're all chasing and isn't entirely necessary. I understand, as Tatum was talking about, finding grants and things like that, yeah, sure, sometimes you have to put some metrics around what your output might be, but I would love to invite you all to give yourselves more freedom to sit in the, I don't actually know if I'm going to be able to define my impact in some sort of measurable way. Because how am I ever going to be able to define how I'm creating a safe box for somebody? And I loved the analogy of the box, and I assumed you swam in a box across the English Channel. Maybe that's just from Cuba to Miami because I assume sharks. But this idea of like, there's so much grayness in this defining of purpose, this defining of impactness, that I often think for folks you could return it with a question of like, well, you tell me how sports has impacted your life. I've organized marches. It's something that Anjali, that we've been compelled to do over the past couple of years, and when I ask people why they show up, they'll stumble through a bunch of answers. Oh, voting rights, climate change, women's right to choose. Like, they don't actually have great answers for it, and I think that to me is what impact is. But Sam, there's this couple of words in your bio that I'd love to ask you to define, and I think we're very good at putting smart words like for purpose, for profit together that actually mean nothing. But I would love for you to tell us a little bit more, because I know we're either running individual companies, or we have colleagues on the field. What is a high growth leader? And how do we hold ourselves accountable to higher growth? And how do we make space for other folks to find their own growth?
Well, high growth leader is a euphemism in my bio for the fact that mainly we work with venture capital backed companies that are looking to grow at disproportionately high rates.
So it's all financial, capitalistic based-ish.
No, I don't think so. It's just about trying to, there's probably a natural rate of growth that companies that are bootstrapped face, and then the point of venture capital to a certain extent is, hey, we're going to give you a lot of money to see if we can generate disproportionate, non-organic, non-linear growth. And I just happen to come from the world of venture capital-backed companies. It's not about capitalistic, it's just the community.
So they all want to become high growth leaders. What are some of those things that you would encourage them to do, both on a personal level, and how can they help facilitate that for other colleagues?
Well, part of wanting to be high growth is just stating the intention. And then it's about articulating what you want and then manifesting a vision of the future. So what does that mean? We do this practice within my community and with my coach, actually, which we call future casting, which is about putting yourself in the future and looking backwards on the accomplishments that you've had over the course of the last 12, 18, 24 months. And the point of it is that you make something real as opposed to hypothetical. So first, if you want to be a high growth leader, then set that intention. But then actually put yourself in the shoes of, it's October 6th, 2023, and you accomplished those goals, which for you meant growth, meant change, meant entering new markets, meant, moving the size of your business forward, and then reflect backwards on what it took to get there. So I do that all the time. I do it with my leadership team. And literally, it's a way of making your goals less theoretical and more practical. So you say, literally, and I have a document where I keep it, I'm so happy and grateful it's October 6, 2023. I'm standing here in my living room, and this is what's happening. This is what's on the TV. We call those scaffolding images. They're basically like, actually put yourself in the situation that you'd want to be in, and then, okay, how did you do it? Well, we accomplished this goal, and the way we accomplished that goal was we made these particular changes. But part of what happens when people want something is they instantly, like the universe has this strange way of the more that you desperately want something, the more you push it away. And the only real way to get it is to not need it anymore, is to act as if you already had it. And so once you stop like needing it in a desperate...
Just pause for one
I feel like you
second.
read my paper.
Hold on.
What?
Okay, go ahead.
No, it's great. It's like
that's
digested.
good.
It's
Okay.
really good. Keep
Oh.
going.
Don't work so hard ish.
Yeah, I love it.
Don't chase so hard.
Don't chase so hard. It's more act as if you already had it. That's all. And frankly, for me, I wanted a lot of things, material things. I also think, I don't know, I may be a iconoclast. I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting nice things, and I don't think there's
Don't
anything.
you all kind of secretly want to know what Sam wanted? Was it like the red Corvette?
It was a lot of different things. It was a lot of different things that are personal to me and my wife.
Okay,
But,
noted.
But the point is, one of my phrases is never apologize for your taste as long as you can afford it. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting things in your life, and I don't think that makes you a bad person, personally. You want to fly on a private jet, that's cool. Just, figure out how you might be able to afford it. But my point is that all of the stuff that I wanted so desperately actually showed up when I didn't want it anymore, when I didn't need it. And so part of the original question was, how do you be a high growth leader? Like I said, part of it is act as if you already are right now. Tell yourself you are a high growth leader. Okay, it's a year from now, you accomplished your goals that for you are definitional of a high growth leader. What exactly happened? And really, again, we call those scaffolding images because we come back to them as a way of anchoring the malleable fabric of the universe towards a specific gravitational point, which is whatever you... And I know this all sounds, I don't know, it sounds a little new agey, and I'm actually, groomed to be like that.
Trust me, you're sitting next to the right people. But Sam, can I just pause you for one quick second? Because this is where I transition from like the universe, this is what I want, to like actually how does this happen? When you talk about thinking about where you want to be on October 6, 2023, do you say, okay, I want my P&L to look like this. I want this many kids in my leagues. I want these many teammates, and I want this kind of marketing, press, buzz, followers, whatever. Like you figure out the metric, and then do you like back into it, or are you just like writing this on and putting it in your laptop and then going back to your to-do list?
No, you back into it when you're writing, and you figure out how you got there. And it really, literally, again, like the problem with hoping for something in the future is it's abstract. And definitionally, it puts you at a distance from it. I want to be rich one day. I want to have a super successful youth sports league. Okay, automatically, I want to, and sort of that it puts it at a distance. So instead, you say, okay, I already have a super successful youth sports league. We have the biggest lacrosse organization in southern New Jersey. Here's how we did it. Here's the marketing activities. So it's the wishfulness is about manifesting the vision, but there are specific details that go into it, and this isn't an excuse not to be disciplined or rigorous. It's only, okay, you accomplished it, so how did you accomplish it? Walk yourself through that, and in so doing, you will put together a plan for how you will actually get there. Also, there's a tension because it's like some part of it is putting specific numbers down at the same time that you don't need those specific numbers to manifest themselves, but they help. One of my phrases is like the future needs to know where to find you. Like, it helps. It helps.
That's a good one too.
Once you construct the image, and I talked a lot, so I'll give Angela a chance to share as well, but I'll give you a specific example. In December of 2020, I wrote this end-of-year vision statement for 2021, and it was about this big transaction that would happen for my company. And there was nothing on the table, but I was just manifesting this idea, and I literally put myself on a really nice boat, and I told myself what swim trunks I was wearing, and all of this stuff, and I said it was going to happen in December of 2021, a year from then, and I even described the details of the transaction, the financial transaction, and I put it in December because I'm like, it's not going to happen before then, we're too small, but if we accomplish all of our goals, this might happen. And 2 months later, I got an email from an investor, and they have a really weird website, so I almost didn't write them back. They're called Elephant Ventures, founded by some of the founders of Warby Parker, or at least Andy Hunt. But I did take the meeting. I took the meeting. 2 months later, they invested $25 million, almost to the note. The number I'd had in my mind was 30, so it wasn't exactly 25. It was just very weird. It was very weird and very surreal in the sense that I had described a thing, and you'll be amazed at how quickly things can happen once you have a clear idea of what you want That's what I'll say.
And Anjali and I are so excited to talk about this, and we have 25 different examples in the past year of how we've written the intention and put it out there for the future to come and find us. I think that's really interesting. But coming back to the sort of purpose-driven related companies and what I think is an unfair algorithm that sometimes folks have encouraged any companies to put themselves through that to try to figure out, oh, here's my impact and here's where I'm making money, and it can kind of all be the same thing. But Anjali, in the companies that you've worked for and the initiatives that you've created on the boards that you sit on, the ones that are the most successful, would you argue that there's some level of authenticity, that there's some level of admitting to the confusion, admitting to the fear, admitting to the I don't know-ness that leads to that success?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's an authenticity for sure to that mission piece of the business. And I think there's also a sincerity to it, where as we're figuring things out and as growth, kind of challenged all of us to keep doing good in a responsible way at a place like Warby, that there was a moment to be like, wow, we didn't anticipate this level of success. How do we take a step back and keep doing it in a responsible way that's consistent with the intention, to use your language, the intention that everyone set out in solving this issue or addressing the issue. That was sort of the purpose part of the business. But without the profit, there was no purpose to keep funding, right? So there is that reality, which I think can at times be a tension, but doesn't have to be, because there is a way to also thread that purpose, that you have setting out across the business, right? So at a place like Warby, or when I advise companies and talk to them about what is their mission, it doesn't have to be buy a pair of socks and give away a pair of socks, right? There's companies that do that, they do it really well, but everything doesn't have to be that one-for-one model. It doesn't have to be, plant a tree for whatever you do, every flight you take, or whatever. You can do that, but some customers don't care. It may not matter. It really matters to what you as a founding team, what your employees care about, what impact you want to have in the world, how do you run your business in the most responsible, ethical way. I think all that stuff matters so much more at this point. Give away a pair of socks for every sock you sell. That's awesome, but what about making sure the labor conditions are fair where the socks are being made? What about making sure if you're flying private that you're buying carbon offsets? I don't fly private. I need to hang out with this guy.
I don't fly private either.
I fly coach because but just
private.
doing those sorts of things, making those responsible decisions as you go and having that weave through. How do you treat your employees? If you are treating your employees like crap, but you're giving away all the glasses and socks in the world, it doesn't matter. Your employers are going to see right through that, and ultimately your customers will too. So what's the equivalent in all of your industries? I would try to make sports metaphors, but they will break down really quickly. So I will not attempt that, but I hope you get my point. And if any of that didn't make sense, feel free to reach out to me and ask me about it.
Well,
Can I add to that really quick?
Please.
Because only to support what you just said, and League Apps is a great example. By the way, League Apps is featured very prominently in my book because Brian and Jeremy were my first consulting clients when I left 5 years ago, the full-time world. But League Apps has this concept of sports dog, and it's all of their values written out. And one of the things that helps with authenticity and also helps to make, exactly to your point, make sure that you're in your day-to-day behaviors, you are leading from a place of authenticity and hopefully compassion and kindness, is just articulating, like I said, what you stand for. And that's sort of part and parcel. For us, we have a whole set of values as well. And some of them are generic, but really what you're trying to do when you have values as an organization is you're trying to put them in your voice, even if the idea is something that's fairly generic or commonplace, so that you can use them as decision-making points, so that, and you really arm the organization as well with the same values so that they can say, hey, you made that decision yesterday. Is that really X plus Y? Was that members first? Is that we choose to come from kindness? These are all values of ours. And I really think that, one of the things when I was talking to Brian initially, he said that putting those values explicitly as part of the decision-making framework for the organization was one of the things that enabled high growth. It enabled scale because it helps streamline decision-making in a way that everybody understands. And it removes the arbitrary nature of saying, in this situation we'll do this, but in that situation we'll do that. So values as an operating system to enable high growth for whatever size your organization is, I think it's just a useful exercise to go through to figure out what do you stand for, Write it down in your words, and that can help you going forward and help other people align with the organization that you want to build.
And I love that idea that it can be a bit of a North Star. And I think some of the challenges, again, around being so committed to defining who we are, and even more increasingly today, you're like, well, you're part of this political party, or you stand with this sports team, or there's this there's this false binary. And I love this idea of putting your North Star onto paper, but I would encourage us, which I think is a bit antithesis to what the rules have been for the past couple of decades, to let it be gray on the edges, to let it be nuanced and complicated and confusing. And I think having that humility as both a leader and the I don't know-ness is a new place of freedom for both entrepreneurs, because the truth is no one knows what they're doing. Truly. It is my belief that nobody knows what they're doing. And the only person I actually need to know what they're doing are the people who land planes. I'm okay if everybody is best practicing their way through this. You can have a first grade teacher who's been teaching for 45 years, and she gets a new student. She has to figure out how to get that kid to read. How are you going to get that kid to throw the ball? How are you going to get that employee happy when they're having marital troubles? Or how are you going to, what's the next component to culture that has to happen? And so I would like to invite all entrepreneurs in the world, not just here, into a new place of humility and grayness. But I will say in closing, in exactly 38 seconds, that that you talk about where you wanted to be in October 2023, October 6, 2023. So there was this girl who sat on a bench on Horatio in Washington in the West Village. Oh my gosh, I'm going to get emotional. 2008, 2007. And that girl had just had her heart broken. And she saw somewhere that if she wrote a list of 100 things that she wanted in a partner, that partner might show up.
This is a really cute story.
So I wrote the list with tears and the whole thing. And I folded it up and I put it in my wallet. And 4 months later, this guy walked into my life. And I kind of forgot about the list, and someone was like, oh yeah, if you set intention, sometimes the future will know where to find you. I love that, Sam. That's brilliant. And kudos to putting the word kindness at the top in a title of a book for entrepreneurs. Anyway, so I was like, oh yeah, that list, and I started reading it. And technically this person probably really got 94 out of the 100 items, but because he's a little bit of a perfectionist, he insisted that it's really 96 out of 100. But that person, and most of you might not know that, is Jeremy Goldberg.